WWE are making a major change to the brand split. We've got Kenny Omega's return match confirmed, and Triple H has commented on the recent Netflix issues. Stay tuned for all the juicy deets. So straight out the gate on this one, we're going to have a look at WWE bringing some changes to the brand split. It's something that I think we've all noticed over the years happening, but it sort of seems like it's here to stay.
It seems like every time they get a brand split, it then suddenly goes slightly away. And we had the superstar shake-up and all that sort of stuff. And we've got a brand split at the moment, and there's a draft every year.
It is like a wave crashing on the shore, isn't it?
Yeah.
It eventually starts to just recede, ready for the next brand split. But according to Figure 4 Weekly, WWE is planning on heavily relaxing the brand split for the next couple of months in the run-up to WrestleMania. The report says expect a very loose adherence to the draft from now through WrestleMania. Lots of all-hands-on-deck shows, especially with things like Saturday night's main event and the move to Netflix.
And I think that's just it. You want to load up Raw. If it's being on Netflix or in the US, obviously it's international. It's everywhere on Netflix alongside SmackDown. But for Raw in the US, you want to load that with as many stars as possible. Your Roman Reigns, your John Cena, your Cody Rhodes, your CM Punks. You can't do that with a brand split unless you move them.
And you've got the handy thing of if you're going to continue doing things like Saturday night's main event, you are able to just completely have a mixed brand show there without any real need to explain anything away. But I think at the same time, it makes sense in storyline. People are going to want to be on Netflix, right? Yeah,
and we kind of saw it this year at the start because The Rock, Cody, Roman, Seth. Roman was on SmackDown. If you're going to say that The Rock had a brand, it was leaning towards SmackDown based on when he was appearing, where he was appearing. They flowed between both shows. That storyline didn't stay on one brand. And I think that's kind of what this report is getting at, is that in the run-up to WrestleMania, and I think we'll see it every year, is this relaxation to allow the storytelling to come first.
You're going to want to incentivize sign-ups to Netflix as well. So I think that this will just be the norm. Maybe we're going to have storylines bleed over from SmackDown to Raw every now and then, just to sort of cross the streams a little bit
just
and make sure people sign up. But I think at the same time, it does just make sense, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
Well, looking at last night's NXT as well, Gigi Dolan made a return to the ring at an NXT house show in a match against Cora Jade. She's been out since March with a knee injury.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Gigi Dolan, and it feels like she was one that had a lot of, I would say, momentum behind her for a very, very long time, especially with Toxic Attraction. And then it kind of just went nowhere. She's someone who I feel should have been on the main roster by now.
Yeah, it's quite surprising. I think that given maybe a small further run through NXT, it might finally be her time to be called up. But it does feel like she was all ready to go and then just sort of the engine stalled.
Yeah, and maybe that's the injury. Maybe I'm misremembering the fact that maybe it was like, I was feeling that maybe at the start of the year she was ready to come up, then we had the injury. But her being out of action for this long, it's a knee injury. We know NXT has a lot of problems with knee injuries.
Really finicky as well about letting people come back maybe, until they are absolutely sure. So it could just be a case of she's got to do a little bit more NXT before we do see her get that main roster push.
Good way to get back in there with Cora Jade and getting the victory as well at an NXT house show.
Speaking of victories, last night, Fraser, we had some updates on the Women's United States title tournament.
We did indeed. The greatest news ever. Chelsea Green has advanced in the Women's US Championship tournament. It's got to be Chelsea Green. She beat Bianca Belair and Blair Davenport on last night's SmackDown in a triple threat match. Belair actually bailed on the match halfway through. This was because Jade Cargill was taken out backstage. She was found injured, lying on the car bonnet with the glass broken. It's real glass. And she left the match, allowing Chelsea Green to pick up the win over Blair. Yeah. She's the perfect choice to win this whole thing, right?
She's set to face off against Bayley at some point in the future. So I think it's essentially out of those two. I could see Bayley advancing, but at the same time, Chelsea Green just makes the most sense for me.
Chelsea makes the most sense.
She'll do so much with that belt. And I think it's a massive moment for her to shine. And I think, it just makes sense.
I think we're going to see a quick roll up on Bayley and Chelsea gets through at the final. The final's taking place at Saturday night's main event, so they do have just under a month to get this, so it might not be immediate that we get this match between the two, but that's looking like how it's going to go.
Well, going off the news that Fraser just broke there, that Jade Cargill was found attacked backstage, splayed over a car bonnet, real glass. God. It's basically officially confirmed that she's been pulled from the tournament match and is set to be replaced by a mystery entrant. So next week it's going to be Michin versus Piper Niven versus triple question mark.
Oh, who could it be?
Who could it possibly be? There is a spoiler.
There is a spoiler. So as I said in the first
Skip
video
ahead
earlier
to
on.
this time if you want to avoid the spoiler.
It's Lash Legend from NXT. This is well, she's been on the main roster for a little while.
We usually go 3, 2, no, it's Lash Legend.
It's Lash Legend. You've got the timestamp there. The timestamp was there. The spoilers happened. It was Lash Legend from NXT, who's been on the main roster a little bit now. There's been a little bit more of that. I feel like this was an easy one just to get a name in there, but also get Jade out of that.
Yeah, at the same time, it means we've got further developments with Bianca and Jade, and this feels like it could be one of those stories that does turn into something much bigger. So potentially, I don't really think Bianca really needed the women's US title, so it's sort of
especially when her and Jade are building this thing as a tag team and potentially a match between the two. Don't need the US title.
Well, looking to the other side of the world, it's been hotly anticipated ever since he popped up at the start of November, was it?
Yeah.
On a New Japan show. Kenny Omega is set to make his return to wrestling, and it was speculated that it was going to be at Wrestle Dynasty, and it was speculated that it was going to be against Gabriel Kidd after their back and forth, and now it is confirmed, with it being made official for Dynasty on January 5th. This is going to be Omega's first match since December 5th, 2023, and it was announced by New Japan on social media.
He has been out of action for a very, very long time. His last match was against Ethan Page on AEW TV, and since then, obviously, he's been out of action all of 2024. So 2024, we've not seen Kenny Omega wrestle at all, which is crazy to even think But
it's even crazier that he's going to be wrestling Gabe Kidd. This could be a king-making moment for Gabe.
This absolutely could.
I've known Gabe since the UK Indies, when he started at the other place, and it's just mental to me to think that he's up against Kenny Omega at Wrestle Dynasty. Go on, Gabe.
In the Tokyo Dome.
In the Tokyo Dome,
which is insane to think about. Absolutely, props to Gabe Kidd getting this match. Kenny Omega, absolutely, you're quite right. A star-making performance, king-making performance.
Yeah, I think Kenny's maybe going to run through him a bit, but as long as Gabe can hold his own, and I'm confident that he can.
Yeah, if Kenny's coming back for the first match, he's got to win this.
But as well, if Gabe deposes a former Bullet Club leader, could we maybe stop this loose conglomeration of Bullet Clubs and bring order to it and restore it as one singular unit, please?
Have Gabe Kidd lead it.
I don't like having all the scattered fighting Bullet Clubs. Just make one. One big group.
It's definitely not an old tired group anymore.
No, just bring it back. NWO 2000. It's going to be fine. And we're going to close out with some news regarding Netflix here. Now, obviously, we had the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. Whatever you thought of that, it attracted a lot of people to Netflix.
60 million
in order to watch it. 60 million people, and inevitably there were some buffering issues. So it led to a whole thing. People were posting online. It was starting to trend. It was buffering for everybody. But Peacock was even seen taking a shot at Netflix on Twitter over it. But WWE apparently kind of urged their talent not to comment. But Triple H has now commented on it, and he said, look, I don't want to flex about it, but it was buffering on my end because I was on a plane watching it. So the buffering was expected on my side. We were flying back from TV, watching the fight, and the signal was a little wonky. And I thought, well, we're 40,000 feet in the air, it should be. But then sort of seeing it online of everybody saying it was buffering, look, you start putting 60 million households all at once on a streaming service. Put it this way, if our first night buffers and they come and say it was 60 to 70 million households watching, I'll be okay with the buffering.
I mean, this is obviously a joke in the sense you'll be okay with the buffering, but I think he's spot on.
Yeah.
If you're pulling in 60 to 70 million people, in theory they
just need to build essentially a Costco-sized bank to just hold the event.
All the servers. And they need so much bandwidth space. And I think this is a, they're going to get a big viewership.
Yeah.
Netflix is in more households than you can probably count. And
I'm really wondering, because we're never really going to know firm ratings for Netflix, are we? And it's one of those where I'm very curious to see how many people WWE are going to attract to that Raw. Because I know that my brother will likely watch it because he's got Netflix.
Yep.
Anybody I know who's got it is going to curiosity watch it.
Especially the big shows.
And especially the big shows. So it's like and the Big Show. Come on,
the Big Show. Yeah, of course.
But I think that it's just going to be fascinating to see how that relates in terms of TV versus streaming.
I mean, I think in TV regards, I think they will average higher. This is just speculation, but I think they will have a higher viewership because of that.
Yeah.
And also, when you think about it, if they're hitting, let's say, 3 million homes, you've got to multiply that by the amount of people in that household that are actually sitting down watching.
Yeah.
So
every household will have 11 Americans in it. And all of a sudden, Raw's got a rating of 300 million.
And Triple H mentioned that in another comment where he'd said that the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, although it had 60 million people watching on streams, he was like, that's 60 million accounts. You're very likely got maybe 2 or 3 people and one place watching it, so you can multiply that viewership. Either way, WWE on Netflix, it's quite a big deal.
It is. It's a massive deal. And it's a brave new world. And we got the really depressing email yesterday over here in the UK saying it's all coming to an end.
It's all shut down.
No more proper network. We're all scared about how much of the archive is actually going to be present. There's a lot still up in the air. I know that's kind of tied into Peacock still having WWE archive. So I imagine after that folds, it'll all come to Netflix. But at the same time,
otherwise,
that's a lot of...
I'll be playing
That's a lot of stuff.
I'll be playing Leave the Memories Alone all the time just until the network back.
Well, that is your second dose of lovely bumper weekend wrestling news. We may be back later on if anything further should break, but in the meantime, just have a lovely weekend. It's freezing here.
And it's full gear
tonight. It's also full gear tonight. Thank you for reminding me, Fraser. YouTube.com/Cultaholic/live. Me and Bachiti from, I believe, 11:30 start of the pre-show. Right here, the waiting room is open. Go leave us some abuse and we will read them when we get in later on. We'll have a gentle cry to ourselves and a hug, and then we'll look at how cutting your remarks are, and then we'll start the stream. It'll be great.